beautiful day in the city. A beautiful day in the city. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Would you be my neighbor? Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Power to the People. I want to thank Rashid NCY for holding it down last week while I was in the wonderful country of continent of Africa. And I want to talk a little bit about this because I'm really considering going back with another group now that I've been there, figured out some things, and going back around the same time next year because the weather was hot enough but cool enough that you didn't need a jacket, but it didn't, you weren't sweating where you couldn't walk to the restaurants or that you couldn't walk through some of the areas. So let me just tell you this. I had a better time in Ghana and on the Cape Coast than I expected. The Gold Coast. I expected to go and learn. I didn't expect to go and kind of have a spiritual awakening that just took me beyond reality that I expected. I expected, you go, because a lot of people, when I said I was going to Ghana, oh, you're just going to commercial park. Oh, they just shop there. Yeah. To me, any place you go, you can learn something.
Right.
But we did not stay in Ghana. We were in Ghana. We left Ghana. We went to the Cape Coast. We went to the places, the actual places where our ancestors, and even my language is changing now. One of our guides talked about he won't say the word slave trade because he said trade suggests that there's a transaction.
Right, that Africa got something back.
And he calls it slave trafficking because he says, in the United States, you all talk about, all this trafficking. And so we get upset about sex trafficking, and we should be as upset about sex trafficking as we were about Africans being trafficked.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw some things out there that, they talked about Christopher Columbus and the fact that Christopher Columbus actually never set foot, according to, on United States soil.
Never. Nope.
Never set foot. But our songs, our teachings in the school, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue and all that kind of stuff. And that when they came to Africa and saw how strong people were, they really came. Some of them came because there were certain Africans who were, showing how much gold they had and going to other countries. And they're like, wait, let's go see this gold. They go to see this gold. And I know I'm not telling it totally correct, but it's just to throw some knowledge out there and go see all this gold. And then they find these people who are so strong and they got this country that needs to be built, and it's like, okay, this other stuff ain't working out. We've killed the Native Americans by bringing our diseases to them who did not have all these diseases, and we killed them just because we wanted territory.
Absolutely.
And so now the Native Americans are not, we can't use them because we taking over their territory. Oh, let's get these strong black African men and women, and we're gonna make them do that.
And to your point, you got to remember, even in Europe, they were enslaving and making servants of other poor Europeans. So this is a model they had been using.
But they used the words in places indentured servants.
Yes.
And an indentured servant is a lot different because they talked about how, people say black people had slaves too. They had indentured servants. And that was when one tribe would take over another tribe. There was that in Africa.
Yes, there was.
That's history. So if I took over your territory and your tribe, I didn't enslave you.
Right.
I brought you in.
Right.
I brought you. So basically, you King Wyatt, I'm King Pridgeon. King Wyatt takes over King Pridgeon's territory, but he doesn't kill King Pridgeon's people.
Gotcha. Right.
He says, I'm the king now. You all are indentured servants. So a lot different. And then even the point where people talk about, the chiefs sold the slaves. Or not slaves, because they were not slaves. They sold Africans. at the end of the day, according to history and more history that was that I found in Africa, just like any era, you have bad players and you have good players. So people who were already in trouble, the bad players, they would be hired by the Europeans to basically go and trick other Africans, and then saying, "Hey, we got jobs. They got jobs over here and all that." Then
the same words, opportunity.
Opportunity.
Yep.
Then when they catch them, then you're done. You're done. So we are able to go to the river, what's called the last bath, and I was asked to speak there, and there was multiple groups there. So I was a speaker there, and when I went in, because the speaker had on, I got on. What I have on? Some Tommy Hilfiger pants, and the speaker said, when I walk down this road, I always take off my shoes. And I took them off. I'm like, let's roll. Let's do. So when you walk into this water, I'm not kidding you. I look down, I'm like, what is that sparkling? Gold dust.
Wow.
Gold. Craig got a picture of it. Wow. I said, put the camera. Now, you couldn't see because of the reflections.
Yeah.
Gold dust is still there. Gold is still there. And so they would take them and they would, this is your last bath before you are sold.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Take them, sell them. These are human beings. Bathe them. Now put oil on them.
Yep.
This is where you get this treated. Put the
Marketing.
oil on it.
Yep.
They didn't get marked until they got sold. So because depending on who they were being sold to, that was the way.
There you know.
And I'm not going to say they didn't get marked at all, but the final mark was where you were going.
Right.
So that by the time you got to the coast, and we were in these chambers where they kept hundreds of people with no bathrooms.
Wow.
One of them still had the drain around the end. So if you wanted to go to the bathroom, real tiny drain.
Yeah.
So in this room, you had people feces, urine, on the women's side, blood, and all of these things that are piling up, and every once in a while they might come and wash it down, but you're in there sometime for months waiting on the next ship to come in, and then the conditions on the ship. I mean, I've heard it. I'm 60. I'll be 60 years old in a couple of days. I've heard it. I've read about it. I've seen movies about it. But until you have set your foot, and check this out. And I had the question, they answered before I can ask, because they called them, they kept saying, we're going to the castle. Going to the castle? Okay, I'm thinking we're going to the king's. That's what they called the slave dungeon.
Wow.
And they used the word castle to kind of buffer it.
Yeah.
So we go up into one of the castles, and I'm just going to call them slave dungeons. The women's part, we're standing there where they kept the women. And there's an open courtyard. I'm thinking, why is there open courtyard for the women, but not for the men, right? The men are kept in almost darkness. There's two little windows that's still there. With no window, of course, on it.
Of course.
So that when it rained inside. So to get women had an open courtyard, balconies around it. Well, above the open courtyard is the governor's
I was getting ready to say, so he
house.
can watch.
Yep. So that he can come out and pick.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He can.
Then we go up the stairs where they would take the African women to his chambers to basically rape them.
Yep.
And then they could go down. So they had a little bit of outside where they could see. And of course, he wanted them clean. And then we saw the water well where they would wash them so that they could be, and I know this is a hard reality, but raped by whoever was in charge. But here's the interesting part, and the part that and I'm just at 60 years old, and I try, I know I try to master the middle. I try to be, kind to everybody, and this is not being mean. It's history. In between each of the castles, as they call it, or slave quarters that we know, there was a church.
Wow.
Yeah, a church. I ain't gonna go through the denomination, but I'm just going to say that there were churches that have had a history of setting up shop in these dungeons so that the people who work there could go to church. So right above,
I could probably guess, but
I'll just say this: in the succession, in my line of succession of consecration,
yeah, I know
one of those people is in that line of consecration. So you had the church above the slave quarters, above those who were enslaved, in two of the castles, and I do air quotes, that we went to. They having church. One of them ended up with a black pastor who had who had come to America free,
Yeah.
of course,
Yep.
and finished and got a high degree. They many of them would not even go in. So I'm looking for his writings because he's written, would not go in because of that N word.
Yep.
And why would you let this in do communion? And
Yep.
why would and then they would use him to kind of calm down those who enslaved. It's just unbelievable. So let me say this, and I'll pause for any questions. I did not realize until 3 days in that I'd only seen black people every day. Working in the stores, owning the businesses, driving the cabs, driving the buses, the president of the banks, the entire government. They're going through election right now. Mm-hmm. They plaster everybody's picture. I didn't realize until 3 days in that everybody running was black.
Wow.
I didn't recognize, until I'm way in this thing now, that I have not, the only person who was not of color was in the hotel as a guest. And so I'm in the hotel, and I'm having breakfast by myself one morning, and probably somebody from South Africa
Yeah, of course.
was at a table. And when I say that the folks from Ghana are so kind, I saw them beat somebody's behind for stealing. Like what you see on
Yeah,
TV.
yep.
Hold on, I'm going to come back to that. They beat him in front of us. Beat him in front of us. They're so kind. And just, this is not like Nigeria, it's a little different,
Yeah.
but Ghana is peaceful. Matter of fact, there are people walking through the streets painted that said peaceful elections,
Okay.
2024. They don't want to fight. They want peace. And this person, who probably is from South Africa, the guy comes over, good morning, sir, change this table. I'm like, okay, no. You ain't gonna talk to him like that. You ain't gonna keep
You
on.
had a Moses
And I'm
moment.
So I'm like, so the guy says, well, it is fresh, sir, but if you want, I can move you over here. I don't want to move over there. I said, change this table. So I ain't gonna tell no story. I picked up my phone and act like I was talking to somebody. And I said, I'm sick of these folks with privilege and how they treating people in this country. So he kind of cut his eyes over at me. But I just felt like it's not necessary.
Right.
This is this country. I've never been in a place, maybe Atlanta, maybe Charlotte, where you got more people
Right.
of color who are, doing their thing. But in the end of the day, I've never been to a country where every single person was a person of color who was out in the street and doing anything.
Wow.
And so, yeah, what's your, I know you got a million questions. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I was waiting for you to come back and tell us a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, I wish I could have gone, but some of the pictures that I saw in the engagement, but the fact that you have people who look like us running things
Absolutely.
is inspiring.
Yeah.
It's really inspiring. And I think that,
It's their country.
yeah. And they're leading it. And I think that's very powerful.
Well, when we first were putting it together, and I want to say big ups to Dr. Uzo, who put everything together for us. He owns the USPS store, UPS store. But y'all think he's the postman on Genesee
Broadway.
And they did a phenomenal job. Everything was just for me, it was great. What was your question with me? Because I'm 10 steps ahead already. So what would you?
No,
What
we
you
were just
say?
talking about it was powerful that you had people that look like running.
Oh,
things.
yes.
We don't always see that.
Yeah, it was,
Very so.
and because so when we first started putting the trip together, I was asked, well, do you want to go to South Africa? It's an easier trip. And I'm like, no. I don't want to go to a place yet. I'm not ready for a place that had apartheid, which
Right.
basically the land was taken over by Europeans, and then we were, had to be their servants and all. I'm not ready. I wanted to go to a place that was going to hurt first.
Right.
And I've always said this, sometimes you got to hurt before you can heal.
Yeah.
And that hurt. That first one, now, when we went to the second dungeon, I was like, I didn't see enough dungeons. I can't take this over and over. And if we go back next year, I would only go to one dungeon because that was I remember driving toward the dungeons and getting like misty eyed because they
Yeah.
were like, these are the roads that they would walk this, and obviously there were no roads. This is the path where they would walk them through and be chained up to get
Yeah,
to
that's a lot.
to get to the place of bathing them, and then had to walk again, and they're chained up together. And if you're weak and you start to die on them, they would tie you to a tree so that the animals would feed on you, and it would keep the animals away from them. So they didn't want to lose anybody, but some people were just going to be the animals' food, and it was strategic. So that's why they tied them to the tree, so that now the animals come there. They can't really pull the whole body off of it. They can pull parts of it, because if you can pull the whole body, now you can hide the body from the other animals. Now the other animals are looking
Right.
for the prey. Some animals are, and I know this might sound really gross, and I hope I don't get bounced off Facebook. At the end of the day, the women who would have their monthly would be, the animals are attracted
Attracted
to
to
the
the blood,
smell
yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes, according to the guides, they would put the women in the front so that the animals, if they did attack, didn't attack in the middle and get everybody else. They got in the front. Now I'd let you go, and if you got attacked bad enough, we can't get away. You gone. You gone.
Cut our losses.
Yeah. So let me tell you about this fight, and then ask me. And at 12:30, I want to talk about the mayor's race, and not as about who you want to see, what you want to see from the next mayor of Buffalo, what you want to see. So get ready for that. Not necessarily who you want to see, what you want to see. So we come out of one of the castles. So half of us are on the bus. Some people are coming in from shopping. And all of a sudden, I hear somebody go, "Ooh!" Now, Africans, or at least in Ghana, they talk loud anyway.
Yeah.
Very expressive. So sometimes you think they're in an argument, and it's really just their way of just talking,
Yeah.
just communicating. So there's an argument outside. I look out the window. I hate violence. When I say I hate violence, I hate violence. I see a guy headbutt another guy, grab him, and bam, here go me. No! No! Now, I ain't get off that bus. I ain't get off that bus. All of a sudden, a group. Now, one guy, they both go running. It's two guys. They both go running. They catch one, bring them back over in front of the bus, take off their belts, pick up sticks. They beat this guy. So we on the bus. Half the other crew trying to get on the bus. The rest are looking out the window, but they beat him. He was bleeding. Then he ran. They got him again, beat him again. They were trying to steal somebody's motorcycle. The one thing you don't do in Ghana is steal. When I say, and I said, why don't they just call the police? They're like, they're not going to call the police. The police are corrupt. They call the police, and he gets arrested, and if his family comes up with some money, they're going to let him go. They said justice is slow here. So we do what's called street justice.
Justice, yeah.
We're going to beat your butt. And then they were going to take him to the police station. They decided to beat him again. They put him in the little tuk-tuk thing, which is like a motorcycle that's got two seats.
Yeah,
in that.
yeah.
They put him in that. They forced him into that, but they're still beating him in the tuk-tuk. I don't know what made them change their mind, but they just took him out of it and beat him again. And then he went running down the street. And the attitudes of those who were around, it wasn't even anger. They started laughing. They're like, yep, I bet you won't come around here again and try to do the same thing. I've seen it online,
Sure have.
but I think I lost my feed. But I've never seen it happen in real life.
Wow.
And when I tell you it happened in real life, when we get to, as long as we're still alive.
Yep.
Yeah, welcome everybody who's on Facebook. So I never saw it in real life. I saw it in real life where they took care of business. And because they tried to take this guy, I don't know if the motorcycle was on, and they just ran out real quick. But they said even if you steal somebody's fabric, you steal from, because I noticed all these open air things. I'm thinking, people are very poor in a certain area we're in. They said, no, stealing, you're not stealing in this area. And they whooped him in front. Ain't nobody say,
Stop.
like nobody said
No.
stop. Nobody said
said
stop.
no, but you.
Me. I'm the one hollering, no! I'm looking like, oh God. Now I want all of the people who are still trying to get on, but they stand over that side, And Africa, though, I'm telling you right now, if you think you're going to a place like Ghana or anything else and you just going to shop, no, not if you have an open mind
Right.
on history. You're not just going. You going once you set your foot on it.
And
it's
that's what I
different.
was going to say. For me, when I travel abroad, like I just don't want to go sit on the beach, like especially to somewhere like that.
Yeah.
I want to, like you said, take in the moment, take in the history, learn something, come back. That should change my life because we've talked about me traveling. For me to go spend $5,000
Right.
just to be like, oh, I went on vacation and sat on the
Yeah.
beach. It doesn't register in my brain financially.
Nope.
So, but if I come back with that moment and those histories that changed my life,
Absolutely.
it's priceless.
It was worth every single
Yeah.
dime to go to a village, and I'm going to come to the station in 4 minutes for the commercials, to go to a village because they had the naming ceremony. So let me tell you, we go to this little village. So, they got the dancers when we
Yeah.
get off the bus and all of that kind of stuff. And then the king of the territory came, and all of the elders and the older women. And then there was this whole ceremony, and guy talks to us. And I sat there looking so the king gets ready to come in. And of course, they make all kinds of noise,
Yeah.
King comes in, he's smiling, he's whatever, he takes the throne. And it was like 30 something from our tour. Then there was a ladies group, 11 ladies who were traveling together. They were there. And then there was somebody from the Amy Zion Church who their grandmother goes down every year, takes care of a village. And I felt so proud to see a black man. Now, it ain't no huge village.
Right.
But I could tell you this is a village.
Yep.
They to see him sitting on the throne and nobody being jealous.
Yeah.
And him taking care of the village, and they raised money for a building they're building for educational center, and it's a quarter of the way built. So it's another guy when they're doing the naming ceremony and give you your certificates. He kept saying like, "Come on down," and I was like, I told Craig he'd been to the United States before. African, he's the second in charge of the village. So at the end, the guy gets up and he's addressing us. Thank you for coming, to our village. Thank you for experiencing our way of life. And then he says, "I'm from Brooklyn." I say, "Craig, I told you."
Yeah, yeah.
But like when he was speaking in their tongue, you thought this dude been there all his life. He said, "I left the United States 27 years ago, and I've only been home once."
Wow.
One time. And he was telling us about his father dying, and they told him his father had to come back and take his father's stool. And how, his life wasn't where and he did, and he stayed, and he had children, and he got married, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I knew he was from Africa, but to see them, some things that I would probably never wear, because I'm like, oh, that's outlandish. But when you see it in Africa,
Yeah.
like the sandals they had on and how ornate they were, or the beads and everything having such a meaning, it was amazing. It was just amazing.
Yeah, because when you started talking about how the slaves were kept, there are people here in this country that don't believe that stuff.
Yeah.
And so you got to see it, and then in your mind understand how they were living and how they were treated. That makes it reality.
Yeah.
Because you question them like, "Oh, that didn't happen." Well, yeah, come see this place.
Right.
Understand this is real. This wasn't fake. This is, they keep talking about fake news, fake history. Well, this is not fake. This is really getting your hands.
You see it.
See it for yourself.
You
Because
see
I
it.
just can't imagine. And when you started talking about how the women were kept and, they wouldn't come back for months, I'm like,
Yeah. Wow. So some of the questions that's coming up, and then I'm getting ready to go to station. Shugi says, "What's your new name?" I don't know the last name. It's Nana Coffee. Nana means king. And they said so the names were actually developed before we got there.
Oh, okay.
So they sent our names, our birth dates, some little things about us. Then the village, the elders in the village came up with our names. So by the time we got there, they had the names
Wow.
ready. And the name of the village that we were in name you by the day you were born.
Okay.
That's one of your names. So I was born on a Friday, and then the virtues of those who were born on a Friday, and then I think the only other person called Queen was Tay. And Tay's parents, who are Holly's, and you know, they've been, you know, so Tay went to the same place her mother took a picture when she was young.
Wow.
And did the same pose.
That's cool.
And very cool. And so the other question from Leona, she must saw what were they doing when each of you sat in front of them along with water? It wasn't just water; it was water and gin. So they gave you water, and they said, we're gonna ask you 3 times, what are you drinking, and say what you're drinking. Don't lie. And then we're going to give you gin. And if you didn't want gin, they would give you pop. And you had to say it. They said, let your yay be yay and your nay be nay. Whatever it is, say it.
Wow.
Don't beat around the bush. So 3 times you say water, water, water. And then it's, you know, gin or whatever, pop, pop, pop. And then they give you a name and explain a little bit about it. And then, you know, they rise up and, you know, and make your ancestors proud.
Wow.
I mean, it was a powerful time. And I had the young man who True Bethel sponsored to go, I think he's teen, first year in college. And when we were I was speaking at the last bath, I had him come stand next to me.
Wow.
Because I said, you would have been a prime candidate.
Yes.
You know, at 60, I ain't a prime candidate. I ain't making it a mile. He's a prime candidate. I said, and you're here. And to even hear his reflections, it was his first time out of the country, his first time on an airplane.
Wow.
First time having a passport. And what he said to me, he was going to fill that passport up.
Yeah.
That's life changing.
Yes, it is.
So we're going to come back after the break. I'm going over to the station in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
When it comes to something as personal as your clothes, you need to deal with somebody you can trust. That's why so many people turn to Hobson's Dry Cleaning, conveniently located in the heart of the community at 874 East Delavan at the corner of Wyoming.
When you take your clothes to Hobson's, you can trust that they'll be ready on time.
You can trust that your whites will be white.
You can trust that you'll always get a fair price and service with a smile.
You can even trust that you won't have to get out of your car if you don't want to. Hobson's has a drive-through window for your convenience.
Trust is what it's all about at Hobson's Dry Cleaning.
Hobson's Dry Cleaning, your one-stop dry cleaners serving the community for over 30 years at 874 East Delavan at the corner of Wyoming. Call 891-8298. That's 891-8298.
Brian K. Lewis Funeral Home has 3 locations to serve you in Buffalo. 347 Peckham, 2258 Bailey Avenue, and Providence Memorial Chapel at 1275 Sycamore. Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes offers traditional services, and they have services for all faiths. And at Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes, they have air-conditioned parlors and chapels. Financing is available, as is limousine service. At those difficult moments in your life, Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes is available where you are with counseling services. Call toll-free 877-885-7734. That's 877-885-7734. Or locally, 845-5545. Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes. We are here to serve you, here to serve this present age. Call today, toll-free, 877-885-7734. Or email info@brianklewisfuneralhome.com.
So one of the people who was on, I'm not sure if he's still on, Bishop Gelsey. I thought about Bishop Gelsey when I was there because he has a presence in Africa and fathers several churches in Africa. And I thought about Bishop Badger, who they go quite often. And, you know, when you've never been there, you're like, wow, they go a lot. Like, what? I'm ready to go back. I got it. I understand whether you're in Ghana or whether you're in Lagos or wherever you're at, to be on that soil and to see your people is just so important. The other thing that was important, and I'm trying to get to the marriage, but is the respect for elders. And for each other. So our tour guide, who has his PhD, young guy, this dude had braces on his teeth, okay? He's young. Smart as I don't know what. His name is Solomon. Smart. And Solomon said whenever he addressed his mother or father, he always had his hands behind his back. He said, I never went up to my father with my hands moving. First of all, the left hand is considered disrespect.
Disrespectful, yep.
So everything you give somebody must be from the right hand. But he said he would most of the time either have one hand or both hands behind his back. And then always they use the word please, even a lot, even if they're doing, can I take this plate, please? Or even if you're asking somebody, can you tell me the directions to such and such, please? Everything is please. Everything is please. That discipline. And when you come back here and you see, young people cussing in front of their elders, you go like, oh my gosh. So people like who are very culturally aware, like Ross and other people, I get it.
Yeah.
I get Juneteenth a lot more, but they live it.
Yeah.
It's not the once a year celebration. Right. It is all year. So all of those words, those are African words. Those are words that Dr. Karenga got from Africa, not that we made up over here. But like the respect. So they were telling us, like, older gentlemen, don't be offended if somebody calls you their uncle or their daddy or their father. And that's all I heard. Father, do you need the? And at the beginning, I'm like, what the heck is going on? And they say, and it's all right for you to say son. It's all right for you to say nephew. It's all right for you to address them as we're family, and this is what I'm identifying you as.
You know what's crazy? Even to hear that, now or today, it's so amazing that there is certain things that have carried over even in our ignorance. Because, like we talked about OG, but how many times they were like, yo, Unc, can... And we just do it, but we have no idea where the roots go back to.
Because Mo Badger always says Unc.
Right.
And he just started saying it out of nowhere. Yep. And I took it as a sign of respect. Yep. When the young man said to me at the hospital, OG, that's a nice suit. I came back to the office I was all in my feelings, like, don't be calling me the OG. And then I found out for us, that's a sign of respect. I think the more and I grew up Methodist, I grew up AME Zion. We were taught these things, but I didn't experience them. But I think the more that we bring, we have such value as a people that I didn't know until at 59 years old.
Yeah.
Like how valuable we are and how respectful we are. Because when we talk about Africans here, we talk about African American, we mostly talk about the disrespect.
Yep.
But I think it's a lack. I think Kamal always says it's a sickness. I think it's not only a sickness. I think that it's a lack of education.
Yes. Right.
And carrying on. Because even you think about it, how I was with my grandmother. I didn't never disrespect my grandmother. Right. I never cursed in front of my grandmother. I picked up my grandmother. I took her where she had to go. All of us did. Even when we didn't want to. She said take her to the Rite Aid. She want to go to Tops and the Wegmans and all
absolutely.
that. But that's what you do for your elders. The other thing that was amazing is they said, have you noticed that we have hospitals? We got a lot of things that you all have. We have no nursing homes.
Because we take care of them. Because
when they get old, it becomes the family's responsibility to take care of them. I was like amazed. And then they were talking about when they get married, they were like, men don't choose a wife based on we like how she look or we like this. We don't marry a wife. We marry a family.
Oof. Ooh, that's a word.
Yeah.
That's a word.
Yeah, they marry a family. So you have to go. You have to have dinner with the family. You have to meet the family. Then they investigate you.
Wow.
Both families investigate the other one. I said, but how can you tell? They said, because number one, there are older people in every village. That older person is going to tell if your family always fighting, if your family doing drugs, if your family have a mental illness. If they went out and they said, so if they investigate you, when you go, you take some type of bottle of wine. They like drinking. You take some type of libation. And when you go back, if they like you, they keep it. That means you can marry.
Wow.
If they don't like you, they hand you your bottle back.
Wow.
And that woman cannot marry the man without that blessing, or she is disowned.
Yeah.
Not only from the family, from the whole village.
Wow.
So they said the families have to get along, and if there's trouble with the couple, they go back to the families, and the families work together to solve it. If a woman slaps a man, it's a big no-no. She could be in trouble, but a man is not. I don't know if men do, but they don't believe in let's just beat each other up.
Right.
Let's beat it. And you got to buy stuff for the woman if you, as a man. So you're going to marry the woman. There's a list the father is going to give you.
Wow.
Of what you want my daughter? I want 6 cows or whatever that village does, right? You have to buy her lingerie, so that all this kind of stuff, this whole list and money. And then I'll tell you this last part. Y'all ask me any question. So we might not get to the marriage stuff. There's something called chop chop. So that's where a man has to give money to his woman either every week or every month. Chop chop means to eat. And it's called eating money. And it's a big deal. Now you work it out with your wife what the amount is going to be, but I don't care if she's the bank president and you're working in construction doing blacktop. You still have to pay chop chop. Wow. And if you don't pay chop chop, she ain't going to cook. And she, it's a big deal, chop chop. And so they talked about how, the guy was like, I have to pay my wife chop chop every week. Doesn't matter. I have to put down that money on the table. Yeah.
Wow.
But if a woman there works, I asked several of the African guys, do you cook? They looked at me like I lost my mind. The tour guide said, oh, I don't go near the kitchen. I said, so if your wife works, she cooks? He said, yeah, she cooks. When she gets home, she cooks. Wow. And I eat. No cooking. He said the male does not know anything about the kitchen unless you a chef and you make it chop chop.
Wow.
No cleaning, no cooking. And that's how it is. That he takes care of the family, he protects the family, he has it. And regardless of whether you agree or not, but he did admit, he said, now that's tradition. He said, but these modern day women
Need to go see go grandma.
Right. He said these modern day women, some of them it ain't the same way. So you got a lot of guys who look for the traditional woman because even they're not barred from working. They can work. They can do all they want to. Let me go to the Facebook page. From now on, is Uncle Bishop. Michael Robinson said, "Did you experience a consistent visceral connection with the continent while you were young there?" No, I'm not going to say that. It was the present of what it was for me at that time, if I'm answering your question correctly. Don says, I can't wait till my ancestry test comes back so I can see where I'm from and so I can visit. Here's the interesting thing. They believe in the ancestral test and all that, but they say they're not always accurate.
I can believe that.
Because our identity was lost.
Right.
And so there's so much that was lost that sometimes, but it's good to know.
Yeah.
But there's sometimes that there's so much that was lost that you can't trace it as easily with someone who may have a whole lot of European in them, a whole lot of British and whatever it is, because we were so divided.
Oh, I was going to say, and even if you were transient at that moment,
absolutely,
to get to the slave market across the country, so across the continent. So if you were really from the eastern side, but then, like you said, your bloodline got trapped in the transport.
Yeah,
you don't know what actual country
very,
you're from.
very difficult. What were you about that?
I mean, it's just amazing when we think about how we grew up.
Yeah,
very respectful of our elders, and you try to understand where did we go wrong that we aren't as respectful.
Yeah, I
mean that's where we came from.
Right,
and somehow, some way, because we would have, I've never cursed in front of my mother, grandmother, any of my elders. Never seen me be disrespectful.
Right,
but it started in Africa.
Yeah, we are king. We are still. So now, just so much of my wording is different because we usually say we were kings and queens.
We still are.
We still are, yes. And it, like I said, it might not be over a city. It might not be, but we are still the government.
Yep.
We are still the So instead of saying we were kings and queens, we are kings and queens. And the value, I'm telling you, this is the truth. I wish I could take about 30 young people who are aware and maybe a couple who are not aware.
Yeah.
And I say a couple who are not aware to surround them around people who are aware.
Yeah.
and change just their outlook on the skin color that God showed. I have never been, and this is the truth, at 59 years old. I'm holding on to that 59 to the last
holding
day.
on.
I have never been more proud to be black.
Yeah.
Ever. And I'll just be very honest, very, very transparent. Because a lot of my experiences with Africans living in America have been negative.
Yeah.
People ask me all the time, why are you not running? Some of the same people asking me right now, every move I made was criticized by people who look like me.
Yep.
I can take it from other people. What crushed me at times was my own people who I'm in these back rooms fighting for, and then putting it out there in front and knowing that if I did run, you'd be the first one to try to take me down.
Yep.
But to set my foot on a land
Yep.
where we can be divided, but the one thing we know, we are black people.
Yes, we
And what we do know as black people, Europeans, you ain't coming in this country again
No.
and doing what you did 400 years ago.
Yep.
It is like amazing. When I walked around and saw everybody looking like me and they were not fighting. Are they in a political race? Do they have different parties?
I'm sure.
Absolutely. And that's okay. That's the political process. But what I did not see, besides beating that boy's butt, they beat it. They didn't kill him, though.
No.
Now, in some other areas of Africa,
They would be.
they put a tire on you and set the tire on fire.
Wow.
Now, I've seen that not personally, I've seen the videos of them lighting up people. Do I agree with it? Absolutely not. Did I agree? I ain't going to say I agree with violence. What I did agree with, instead of them, they ain't kill him, but they made sure he knew, don't come over here and steal. Like that respect of of the people for the people. Now, our tour guide was really calm, really nice, took us to a church. I met with the pastor. Church was wonderful. I thought it was going to be like 3 hours because it had that we get there at 10 and we leave at 9 and we go to lunch at 1, but it was really only an hour and something, but it was very well put together, very inspiring. Church was bigger than any church I've ever seen in my life. As far, not the sanctuary part, but afterward we went to go meet with the pastor, and like they acknowledged we were there. They made us special seating there. I went to the second floor where it was at least 40 offices.
Wow.
40 at least. If I'm exaggerating, I'll say 25 offices, all with glass walls.
Wow.
So you could see enough. They weren't huge, but they were big. The same thing was on the first floor.
Wow.
They have their own school. It was just so much. So they had a couple sitting in the front. We were in the front. Then there was a couple sitting next to us. And he announced that they were engaged to be married. And he says this. So he had them stand. He said, we asked this in church. Is there anybody here who objects to them being married? In open church. In open church.
Wow.
Because he said, you want to object here now. So that when we get to the wedding, we don't have to do this. So when I went up to meet with him, and he's he's all over the world. He's with T.D. Jakes. He preaches. They preach in the same type of circles. So we went up to meet with him. They put us in another room. It was just room after room. We see the couple in there now signing their stuff to move forward because nobody objected on Sunday morning. But here's the part I'm bringing somehow here. When we walked into that sanctuary, lights were real low, and I did this last night when I started. Lights were low, and there was a woman singing very softly before church started. Just wasn't hollering, wasn't let's jump, just real easy, and it just set the atmosphere. And then all of a sudden, went right on time, like boom, without nobody running around, boom. It's a stage full of young people, like a praise team, and they got on sneakers and they got on jeans and they rocking the stage. Boom, 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 boom. Full little orchestra, right? They leave the stage and brother comes out right on cue, makes a few announcements, whatever. He does the prayer. He does targeted prayer. He does targeted scripture. Today we're praying for and he reads his prayer. He reading the prayer off his iPad. He goes off and a choir come out to sing to him in robes.
Oof.
With
Yeah,
a
that
with
sold
a
you
with
right
a
there.
cathedral. Oh,
That sold
my
you right there.
gosh. When that choir came out, and they didn't do a choir selection, they did the hymn of the morning, and the band moved out of the way,
I
and
know
this
you.
brother came out and hit that pipe organ that probably was an electric pipe organ, but it had all the stops and everything.
Oh, I
And the
know.
conductor comes out with his thing,
I
and
know
he's
you was in
crowd.
heaven.
Listen. When I tell you, because you know the hymn's got to be right, but it was the setting of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So that by the time the pastor got up, pastor sitting down on the floor with us. Pastor get up, do his little homily, and it was over. That was their second service.
Wow.
An hour and 15 minutes. But the respect that everybody had when you walked in.
Right.
Ushers there's 4 ushers at one door. They ain't just like, you can't sit here. Now they did have some restrictions because
Right.
there's order.
Order in the
But
house.
it was the way they said it. Sir, this one is reserved, but would you like to sit here? You know, those type of things. The calmness of our people. And then you come back and you go, it becomes all of our responsibility to educate our people on how smart we are, how powerful we are, and how when we're unified, how we get so much more done. I know we got big concerns in our community. I know, we in court, out of court over this 33. I wish, and the reason I just wish everybody for real would get together and say, how do we figure this out for what's best for our people? Those village leaders that are gone because we allowed them to be destroyed.
Yep.
Now the older ones, they don't even show up. The older pastors, they're like, I'm not getting in between this and have to be fighting with social media and have to be fighting with this. I just sit back. And that's what's happening in our region. I don't care whether you agree with me or not. But at the end of the day, I believed if we knew how to work together, that we could demand resources to come our way.
Yes, sir.
So I'm really processing all of this. I'm still going to be processing it.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot that in a week,
Yeah.
less than a week, that my whole thing about those who were enslaved, really the eyes were opened up. But more importantly, even I'll make it very personal, even for my interaction with my own children, I know that I have to, and they're grown, I got it, but I know I got to be even more of a support for them and bring the same type of thing. It ain't no way. I told you before, they raise kids differently. No.
That's a whole
There's got
nother
to
show.
be,
Golly.
a level of respect, because you can let them talk to you like that. They ain't going to talk to my mother like that. And they're not going to talk to me like that. But that's a two-way street,
Right.
because those leaders are real leaders.
Yeah.
Those chiefs are real chiefs. You're not coming into the village here and, just walking off with my daughter. There's got to be some discussion.
Yeah.
So it is a two-way street of respect. But I see here where you got a younger generation going, the old people don't know what we want. No, it's one thing to have a discussion. Right. It's one thing to understand, but most of the time it's just a fight here.
Yeah.
And that's the disappointing part.
Yeah, and it is, and this conversation, like I said, is a whole nother symposium, because like even this week in coaching, I've had to sit back and I'm like, I don't even know if I know how to coach this generation anymore.
Wow.
Like we've tried this, we talk to them, we do other things, and it still doesn't work. And I'm like, I don't know if I know how to change to get through. So like even all this week I've like reevaluated, because now I'm even now seeing it in my son, and I'm like, I don't know how to get through. Yeah. Because like you said, it's different than me. Like I was always in this like, okay, I was one of those kids and this, that, and the other. But it's like, but at a certain time, I knew how to turn it off and get focused. And it's like, these kids don't. It's one way. So it's a whole nother conversation.
Michael Robinson asked the question, what type of education through our place of worship and gathering do we need to advance these positive principles in our community? He's totally right. We learned them from St. Luke African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church and from our parents who took us there. I am reevaluating, I'm sure Bernadette is and Blake is and the leaders of the youth. what we're doing with our youth. Because our youth right now, we're not and I'd say all of our youth are African American. At the end of the day, we're not indoctrinating this in them because we didn't know.
Right.
So I think like Nate used to do when he at another church, he would do the rites of passage, and all of that gathering of youth was about developing them and getting them to understand their roots and who they are and who they are, not who they were, but especially their history of what happened to them and then why they need to achieve here. So my head is in all kinds of places, Mike, but I know as far as after I put my foot on this soil, that I want to incorporate that type of education.
I mean, while you're talking, I'm sitting here and, you know, me and my sons have these conversations and they question everything.
Yep.
Nothing is real. And I'm saying the next trip that you do, I'm going to make sure my two sons go.
Yeah.
Because that's how we educate them and really get them to see it's not just about a history of what you read.
Yep.
It's about experiencing what was going on.
Absolutely.
Because I think our kids have to see it in order to even understand it or to even have any influence. Because we can tell them certain things. This is almost like, you know, people can tell you about the civil rights movement and the challenges, but you don't feel it. You like,
Right.
oh, well, that was then.
Yeah,
It's not now. You don't think it's real.
Yeah.
You think we just arrived.
If I do it again next year this time, there would be some things that would occur before we go. And
Right.
Dr. Uzo did really good planning and meeting with us to tell us what we should do, what we need to do to
Right.
travel. But I think there has to be a mindset so that you know what you're walking into.
Yeah.
And so that it's more than a trip, but it is totally a spiritual and transformative a movement in your life. Listen, and Kamal says it takes a village.
And I
Kamal
was
is
just
very
getting
right.
ready to say before we go off, Ross said two things, two texts that made sense. He said, cultural reparations is what we need most. And he said how to take Juneteenth and / Kwanzaa from ceremony to culture.
Wow, listen, this is so wild he would say that, because remember here, after Juneteenth, we said we wanted to get involved. We really didn't, and I'm sure they're starting for this Juneteenth. I really, honestly want to be involved in Juneteenth this year because it just, I have this other awareness now that I read about for 59 years,
Right.
but now my feet, and this is what I told the chief. So I had to get up and speak and say to the chief in the village why we came to Africa, not why we came to their village, why we came to Ghana. And this was my speech. My feet have been on soil that my people did not choose to be on.
Right.
Other people chose for them. We came here because finally our feet are on soil we chose to be on.
Powerful.
And that was it. That was it. Listen, folks, it's been a great show. I'm sure this isn't the last year. Maybe next week we can talk about what you want to see from the next elected mayor of the city of Buffalo, New York, and we can get into that conversation. But I am forever changed for the better. Until next week, power to the people.